I've written down 20 questions that I thought I'd like to hear the answer to, and I think you all might like the answer to these questions. They're really basic. I'd like to do a lightning round with you where you don't think about it too much.
Oh, great.
But you can think about it if you need to. What's the fattest sounding vintage synth?
ARB 2600.
What vintage synth is the easiest to program?
Juno 106.
Which vintage synth never breaks?
The OB8.
What is the most unique sounding vintage synth?
The Memory Moog.
What vintage synth makes the best bass sounds?
The Moog modular.
Okay. What is the best vintage string synth?
Selena.
Oh, you got that one right away. What vintage synth is the most expressive?
CS80, no questions asked.
What vintage synth is the most expensive?
The Moog modular. Or an ARB 2500.
I think so.
Yeah.
What vintage synth is the hardest to repair?
CS80, Quadra, and yeah, I'm going to go with those two.
Those two. What is the best reissue synth?
The OBX8 is very well done.
It's well done. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the most overrated vintage synth?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
We can skip it and come back.
Okay, no. Say it's a PPG Wave. In my opinion, and I'm alone in that opinion.
What is the best vintage synth that is not well known?
Oh man, I know way too much about this stuff to give quick answers. Best vintage synth that's not well known. I'd probably go with the 100M. It's not the 700 that everyone knows and loves, but it's very capable.
It's the best.
Yes, I would say it's the best that's under the radar.
Over a chroma?
Over a chroma. Well, chromas, we can add that to things that are hard to fix.
Okay. But it's pretty darn good, not that
Yeah,
well
so it's a
known.
very great synth.
What is your desert island vintage synth?
My Oberheim 8 voice.
Beautiful. What is the best bang for the buck vintage synth?
Juno 106.
That's coming up a lot.
Or a Trident. A Korg Trident as well.
Trident.
You get a lot of features out of one synthesizer.
And it's cheap?
Relative to like a Jupiter 8, yeah, it's a Jupiter 8's what, 25 grand. A Trident is $6,500 currently.
Let's see if you can answer this one. What's your favorite virtual synth?
Omnisphere.
Oh, you got it right away. What vintage synth would you like to never see again?
Quadra.
What is your favorite wavetable or FM vintage synth?
FM vintage synth. I think the GS1 is really cool. Also the DX1, I suppose.
Can you say Synclavier too?
Synclavier.
What is the cheesiest in a good way sounding vintage synth?
Cheesy in a good way. Wow. Maybe. Oh, I'm going to go with the Matrix 12 on this one because the presets in that are very cheesy.
Okay.
But they do sound good and paved the way for a lot of what came after.
Because I like the Omni for that too.
Yeah.
What is your favorite vintage drum machine?
DMX.
And then my favorite question, what vintage synth is the best looking?
Oh, definitely the Oberheim 8 voice.
Okay.
It's classy. It's the white tux of synths.
So I hope I hit some of the questions that you guys might like to ask Rob.
Well, I got to ask you one.
Okay, what?
What's your favorite synth?
My favorite synth is right here, the ARB 2600.
And why is that?
It's, for me, the easiest to program. It's the easiest to see. And it kicks butt. It sounds great. And it gives me so much flexibility because there's kind of one of every module in it. And it has a handle. And one of my favorite things about it, it has 2 speakers in it. So I don't even need an engineer because I don't plug all this stuff in. And I can just turn it on and it works for me right in front of my eyes. It's got a
What about polysynths?
polysynths. I really like the Jupiter 8 and the Prophet. Probably
Can't go
because, yeah, I've just taken them out so many times and played them with bands, and they're just quick and easy. And especially the Jupiter 8 seems to not break very often. It's pretty rock solid.
Desert Island. What's your Desert Island synth?
I would just drag the 2600, I guess. I wouldn't be able to play chords, but
You got 3 oscillators. You can get close enough.
yeah, parallel chords.
Yeah. That could work.
What else?
Let me think. I gotta
Feel
go
free.
off this.
You don't have to.
Okay, good.
Just if you needed.
I don't want to ask you what synth you really want.
Because you know that already.
Yes, I do. What do you think is the best looking vintage synth?
I mean, it's hard to go wrong.
It really is hard.
The Moog modular, I dreamed of it, you know. That's why I got into this. When I was a kid and I heard Switched on Bach in 1968, and I was taking piano lessons, it was like, I'm going to keep taking piano lessons because I really want to know how to play that thing. And I dreamed that it was beautiful to me, and the sounds that came out of it were otherworldly, and so I associated it all with that. It's like the inner beauty, you know. I see the inner beauty and I see the exterior beauty at the same time.
Okay, I have two more questions for you. Number one, what would you say has changed in your life since having a regular tech/friend like me working with you, as far as your professional ability to use your stuff or have your stuff?
Well, I have confidence that I'm going to be able to have the instruments that I love available to me. That's the first thing. But what's also changed is just I can talk to you and you understand me. And you understand me in terms of the instruments, but you understand me. We both have a lot of things in common about our life. It's in our personal lives. It's unbelievable to me. I feel completely blessed by the gods that I know you, and it changed my life, and it's given me a newfound energy for all of those things. Somebody to share something with, it's everything.
And I feel likewise. You know, I do feel honored to be your friend and to have you as a friend. And you know, you're an inspiration in many ways, and I really do mean that. And you know, doing what I do, actually seeing you play the things actually makes that worth it. To hear someone who really knows how to play it and how to use it, actually operate it, is beautiful. It's incredible. Lastly,
it transcends time, though.
It does,
because you're like an old soul.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, you're a young person, but you're connected.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm kind of coming at it from the opposite direction. But I really believe in what's going on now too, as you do. Mm-hmm. So it's just I don't know who else I would really have that kind of connection with. So I just wanted to add that.
I can appreciate that. And lastly, and this is for all you guitar folks out there, what is your favorite pedal to use?
Oh, great.
You're more than qualified to answer this.
I mean, it's hard for me to bypass the phase shifter, the Maestro phase shifter. It only does one thing.
Yeah, but it does it really well.
It sounds so good, and it was the first pedal I ever had. The Mutron 3, another crazy pedal that I love. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say too. Those are like my first pedals when they first came out, and they're so versatile, and you can put them on a synth, and you can put them on a clavinet and a Rose, and I used to jam my organ through that and fry it through the Mutron. I mean, because it fries things too. It's like a fuzz too. So I like that quite. I used them together, and I didn't match the impedance or anything. I was just like jamming signal. I wasn't back, because really to run a pedal properly, you need to back off the signal, because synths are too hot for guitar pedals. Rob's asking me this because he knows I'm like a huge guitar pedal fan. I have every guitar pedal that I can think of that I really like that's vintage, you know, and I figured this out now. It took me all of COVID to sort of really get it right, and I highly advise you guys to use guitar pedals on your synthesizers. At the end, it gives you sort of this extra level. But one thing I like to do is keep the straight signal. So I parallel the straight signal, and then you still get all that great bite, and then it's a little bit more of a covered sound from the pedal. But using them together it's nirvana.
Okay, I have one more. I lied about the two. There's one more. There's a huge, very long period of time where most people who owned analog synths, and most people did not own a lot of the synths they actually owned in the 70s and 80s. A lot of people had them back then, sold them, and then maybe got them again more recently. Anthony still has a lot of the stuff that he had back then. Yeah. Where were you when everyone was using Tritons and motifs? What were you doing?
Well, I mean, I was just carrying through like a lot of the analog stuff. Once I got into the synclavier, I kind of put it away a little bit, and I was really just sucked into the whole world of being a film composer. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't really programming on analog synthesizers a whole lot. I just used the Roland 100M, which is a little bit over there. We can show it later, with the synclavier because I needed analog filters on the synclavier. I needed something, and I was able to send gates and triggers. So where was I? I was like into the world of synclavier and going through all the stages of synclavier, which started with just FM synthesis, then monophonic sampling, I should say, then polyphonic sampling, then MIDI, then giving us more voices so we could have more polyphonic voices with sampling, and then more voices with FM and putting those together, and then getting the direct to disc. So we were getting the first digital recording, so we could record vocals and all on tape. But it was all digital, and it was like a complete digital music system with notation and just keeping all that going. That's where I was. I was just into that world, and then creating mock-ups, doing the first mock-ups for movies.
Wow.
Like I worked on The Color Purple with Quincy Jones, and I would say that was like me not being a film composer for a second, because I was creating acoustic instrument mock-ups for Steven Spielberg to cut the film.
Wow.
And no one had ever done it. Like Quincy called it Polaroids, which was based on Polaroid photos that he used to use to take of his mixing consoles to save the settings, because they weren't savable. It was before memory, before digital consoles had recall. So he called it Polaroiding, like making a mock-up. So I was just so into the synclavier world. And then all of a sudden, I did a job for like an Asian TV commercial, and I broke out the 2600, and I hadn't touched it in like 7 years or something like that. And they were just like, what is this guy doing? And it all came back to me. It was like getting back on a unicycle or something, and I was just holding the room. Like I was just making every kind of sound, helicopters, birds, and it just happened, and they were having fun. And then I just thought, you know what, now I got to reel it in. And it's been a constant process over the last, I'd say, 15, 20 years of really reeling it. I still feel like I'm just about to dial this all into one. Like, you know what it's like to put a studio together like this, to get everything working, where all the synths are up and they're going through the effects, and you can play them all, and they're all at the right place where you can record. And that's like what I really want to do, is get it where it's one big instrument, like Tonto, what Malcolm Cecil did for Stevie Wonder. And I'm giving you these really long answers, but
I love it. This is what the people want, the long answers.
It's a long process.
Yeah, I definitely know that. It is definitely a long process.
To do something you love, because you can just go deeper and deeper, when you really love something. So, and it's just a journey we're on, and we share it together, and we go off and come back, and I think that's what everybody's doing right now, really, putting the pieces together, digital with analog, and old music with new music. There's so much retro musicality now into the new songs, but then the arranging from the new songs that comes from a DAW, mute mixing, and things that you can do with right down to the frame. It's pretty phenomenal. So that's what we're all doing, putting the love into it and bringing it together, digital and analog, and it's really, it moves me.
I dig it, and I love the DAW. I definitely think that's one of the best things that's happened in the last many years.
Yeah.
Can't imagine still using like an MC8 or something like that. But
Right.
I guess you come from Synclavier, which is, I guess, everything's all in one box.
Well, I liked the buttons for each. I liked having a button for play and a button for rewind and fast forward and all that sort of thing.
That makes sense.
It's a little different than the mouse and the QWERTY keyboard. But other than that, you can still get a controller now for a DAW, and the DAW is it's just the next generation.
Nice.
So let's
I dig
keep putting it together. And it's just like we're not even halfway there. Keep
Feels that way.
charging.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, this was fun. Thank you for this.
Yeah.
I hope
All
my
good.
answers were okay. Hope you're enjoying learning about all these synthesizers. Like and subscribe, or your synths may soon stop working.